Good morning. Thank you for signing up and participating in the webinar. This is a reprise of a workshop that we presented on Tuesday afternoon to a group of about 40 interested parties that went, we think, very well and was very well received. We got some great questions and comments, and we appreciate that interaction from the audience. Feel free to do the same thing as we make our way through this presentation today. You have an absolute treat here with Lynn Groundwater as she explains a lot of what the data and the writing is in that massive GSP that we put out for comment. But she's going to do a great job of reducing it down to very understandable, practical language for you. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Lynn, our expert on the subject and main author of our GSP, and let her give you the straight scoop. Lynn?
Thanks, Matt. So as Matt said, my name's Lynn Groundwater. I work at Provost and Pritchard, and I'm going to do my best today to kind of break down the GSP, and hopefully you can understand what I'm explaining. If not, feel free to use the comment box to ask questions, and we'll stop periodically to go through. So to start off, we're going to go over a SGMA overview. So for session 1, we're going to go over the plan area chapter. But before I get too into the details, we have a live poll. Rebecca, if you want to explain how people can answer it.
Yeah, sure. So let me just get the screen switched over here. We're going to conduct a live poll. Some logistics we have to go through here to get it working. So we're going to start this live poll with just an easy question. Is this your first SGMA event? So you can respond 2 different ways. You can go into your internet browser and type in pollev.com/groundwater155. You can see that link there at the top. Or you can text the number 22333 and type into the message groundwater155. And then once you join in, you can vote either A or B.
Now you have to move the box or else you can't see the percentage.
They can see it.
So we're just going to give you guys a couple minutes to answer the poll before we get started. Alright, so it looks like a majority of you have been to a SGMA event before. There's some of you that have not, and the percentages will keep changing as you answer the question. So for those that have been to a SGMA event before, some of this might be some background and review. I just want to make sure everyone's brought up to speed and on the same page. And for those who haven't been to a SGMA event before, thanks for coming. I hope you learn a lot about the MAGSA GSP during today's webinar. Okay, So going back to the beginning, what is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act? This slide is just a very broad overview. If you want to go into the actual Groundwater Management Act, there's emergency regulations and the actual laws that were passed that are many, many pages, but I didn't want to spend too much time going over the logistics. I want to spend the majority of today going over the plan, but just to give a little bit of background, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is the comprehensive legislation to manage groundwater to sustainable levels. It was adopted in 2014, and whenever we've gone to meetings with the Department of Water Resources, they emphasize that they want to give local public agencies the ability to comply with SGMA and that the local agencies have local control. So the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, the MAGSA GSP, is the local agency's way to become sustainable in the area. And if by 2040 are not sustainable, then the state will intervene if the local agencies and counties fail. And the state intervention is the last resort. We do not want that to happen, but that is the backstop if the plan doesn't make the MAGSA GSA sustainable. So a little bit of a timeline. In 2017 was the deadline for the Groundwater Sustainability Agencies to be formed. So MAGSA was formed in 2017. The GSP, the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, needs to be submitted to the Department of Water Resources by January 31st, 2020. That date continues to rapidly approach. And once the plan is submitted every April, the MAGSA GSA needs to submit annual reports. Those annual reports include the data we've collected within the Groundwater Sustainability Agency so that DWR can monitor our progress on reaching sustainability and if we're reaching the goals we have set for the area. As well as the annual reports, there are 5-year GSP updates. So every 5 years, the plan will be updated. The Department of Water Resources recognizes that until we continually get data, the information included in the plan may change. So there's some assumptions when we put everything together that we think the groundwater basin might react in a certain way, but until we start getting data, it may react differently than we thought. So every 5 years we update the plan and if we need to adjust our goals and criteria. With the ultimate goal being that the Groundwater Sustainability Agency is sustainable by 2040. So that gives us 20 years to reach sustainability. So a little bit about how we develop the GSP within the MAGSA area. The MAGSA is one of 7 groundwater sustainability agencies within the Kings Basin. So there's some coordination that is involved amongst those 7 GSAs. And we collected data and reports and information. And as we started to develop the GSP, we would present that information to the TAC, which is the Technical Advisory Committee within MAGSA, and receive their comments, and depending on their comments, adjust and edit the different sections of the GSP. And when we got a more finalized product, we would present it to the board, and it was an iterative process. We met with the technical committee about once a month in the beginning, and then it turned into twice a month and eventually once a week, just to be able to get through all the information and finish the plan on time to release it for public review back in July. And so we are currently in our 90-day review period with a public hearing set in October. So just to summarize a little bit, what the GSP does do is it documents the current and historical conditions, including the groundwater levels, groundwater quality, and water budget. So part of the plan is we gather data for what the water levels have done historically, and then we will continue to monitor the water levels and water quality moving forward to see how they react as we try to reach as we reach sustainability. What the plan also does is that it identifies measurable objectives and minimum thresholds. So the measurable objectives are our goals. So for example, for water level, those are the water levels we hope to reach. And so as we monitor water levels, we can check in and see how we're doing, if we're reaching our goals, or if we need to make some adjustments to our management of the area to reach our measurable objectives. And then the minimum threshold is our do not go below line. So for water level, it's the water level we want to stay above. So we do define that criteria within the plan. And then we also define and outline some potential projects and management actions for the area, and I'll go over those in more detail in a later session. So what the GSP does not do is it will not require immediate pumping restrictions. It will not require changing to crops. It will not require land use changes, and it will not require mandatory fallowing. These potentially could still occur, but these are more of a last resort, and it's not going to happen right up front. So the first step is to gather data and to have education and outreach so growers are aware of how much they're using and how much their crop actually needs. And then in the future, if by we get close to 2040 we're not sustainable, we might need to take some other actions, but this is not going to happen up front. So this map just shows the 7 GSAs, the Groundwater Sustainability Agencies within the Kings Basin, as I mentioned earlier. So we have North Kings to the north, which is mostly Fresno Irrigation District. As you move west, we have the McMullen Area GSA, which is this GSA. To the west of that is the James Irrigation District GSA, comprised mostly of the James Irrigation District. South of McMullen is the North Fork Kings GSA. East of McMullen is Central Kings GSA, and within Central Kings you have South Kings, which are the cities, and to the very east you have Kings River East GSA. So this is a map that shows the McMullen Area GSA and the agencies within the boundaries. So we have the Kerman Ecological Reserve, the Alkali Sink Ecological Reserve along Highway 180. The two districts within MAGSA is Mid-Valley Water District and Raisin City Water District. And all of the other white area within MAGSA is the County of Fresno. So this is a brief outline of what is included in the plan. So it starts off with an executive summary for MAGSA. It's roughly 20 pages to give an overview of the highlights of what's included in the plan. The introduction, plan area. The plan area goes over what agencies are located within the area, some information on general plans. And then there's also the basin setting, which goes over current and historical groundwater conditions. We have the sustainable management criteria, which is the chapter that defines the measurable objectives and minimum thresholds. We have the monitoring network, which is outlining what wells we're going to monitor for water level, what wells we're going to monitor for groundwater quality and land subsidence, and the 6 sustainability indicators, which I'll discuss in a little bit. Also goes over the projects and management actions that are included to achieve sustainability, and then plan implementation, and there's also references and technical studies and appendices. So before we go into session 2, are there any questions?
So there's one question in the chat. Are you ready to submit the GSP, or are there updates in process?
So there's some updates that still will happen. There's a couple items we were waiting on the coordinated effort on. So for the sustainable management criteria, the 7 GSAs needed to agree on methodologies. And so we're waiting on some of that information to be updated, but there shouldn't be substantial changes to the plan.
I think it's safe to say that the plan itself is subject to continued fine tuning. That's part of this process. As you have comments and concerns, you submit those to us, and we evaluate those, re-engaging the technical advisory committee, and we take a serious look at every one of the comments, and then we continue to revise the plan as appropriate to reflect all the concerns that do come up. And I just wanted to back up for 1 second and kind of perhaps inject a theme here that you may hear from the MAGSA GSP going forward, and that is that we're going to be very data hungry. We're going to need to get information. Historically, the MAGSA area has not had a great deal of information from which to plan, and of course, to do proper planning and management, you do need to have information. And so we will be asking for information from our landowners and from our stakeholders as we go forward, and of course, our ability to do effective planning will hinge directly on the amount and the quality of the data that we're able to gather. The second thing is as Lynn indicated, is what this plan does do is it does provide a proposed roadmap to get us to sustainability, easy word to say. But what we're going to focus on initially is on the resource side. We're definitely going to try to maximize efficiencies, get additional water supply, partnerships worked out, and get recharge going, and really focus on identifying just how much groundwater is actually being extracted in our area. We're using estimates right now, and the estimates generally tend to be high, and so we're going to be looking to get that very good and high quality data so that we can begin to hone in on proper management. And it's going to take group effort to get that done. It's just not going to be managers taking a look at things. It's going to be all the stakeholders working together to get that taken care of. So that's my 2 cents for now. Staying away from the negative side, staying away from concepts like fallowing and restrictions on groundwater pumping and allocations and so forth for as long as we can, but certainly how we react to that part of the process will be determined by how well we gather data. So with that, I will check to see if there's any other questions that have come in.
Yeah, so there's another question. Is there a general agreement among the 7 GSAs toward approval and submission, or are there any serious issues?
The GSAs have met regularly since this process began. We have an obligation, in addition to GSPs, we have an obligation to come up with a coordination agreement because our groundwater basin does have more than one GSA. That process has been moving along fairly smoothly. We've had a few bumps, we've worked them out. Largely, the coordination agreement is beginning to get to the point where we probably will be putting it out for some review and comment, and as Lynn indicated, we're waiting for a couple of technical issues, which I think mostly have been worked out. It's going through a final legal review by most of the GSAs, but hopefully within the next 2 weeks to 30 days, we will have a coordination agreement. So I think the simple answer to your question is that there always will be issues, but by and large, we've met the requirements of SGMA relative to coordination for the time being.